Hello and welcome to my channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. My name is Alfonso Peluso and I'm a Studio Associate Professor in the College of Architecture at IIT, the home of the legendary Mies van der Rohe, and I'm adjunct faculty at Columbia College Chicago in the Interior Architecture program. Shout out to all of my students. How is everyone doing? I hope everyone is doing well. I'm doing great. It's a winter day here in Chicago, not too cold, right at the freezing mark. There's some snow on the ground that is slowly melting away. All right, InDesign. I'm pretty excited about an InDesign tutorial. It's something that I wanted to do for a long time. So let's run away with it. So here we're looking at some pages. So this is pretty much what we're gonna make in InDesign. Right now they're not facing pages; they're just stacked one on top of another. And if we look at the outline for today, we're going to look at the interface. We're going to look at making a new document and setting up page sizes. Layer setup is something that I think for some reason falls by the wayside. And we're going to want to, be very strategic and organized with our layers. We'll look at guides. If you've used Photoshop or Illustrator, you're very familiar with that. We'll look at image placement. We'll look at setting up some text and we'll talk about fonts. We will look at how to switch objects from one layer to another. We'll learn how to duplicate our spreads and we'll talk about facing pages versus stacked pages. And we'll add a little interactivity to our InDesign file by adding page numbers. Alright, before we jump into all of that, Rita wants to chime in. there's Rita right on cue. That's my dog Rita. I'm sure she sees a squirrel outside or something like that, but she's right on cue there. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. Click on the subscribe button and click on the bell to receive all the notifications. Recently made it to 7,000 subscribers, so my next goal is 8,000 subscribers. Thank you for your help in getting me there. Also, connect with me on Instagram. See what my students are up to. See all the great work that they're producing throughout the semester. And you can connect with me at my first name, Alfonso underscore my last name, Peluso. Love to connect with you there. Alright, so today we're going to look at InDesign, and one of the things I want to start off with talking about is just the simplicity of a layout. And here I am at apple.com, one of the most important businesses of our time. And if you look at their website, you can see it's very, very simple. And they use one font throughout, but they change or they alternate the color of that font. Simple images that accompany the fonts, not too busy. If I click on one of these pages, like for instance if I go over to iPad, you'll see again something that I want to talk about, something to keep in mind when we get over to InDesign is you see here there is a title with a larger font, and then they have some body text that's a little bit smaller, and then they go even smaller with the price, right? Because the price is important because you're just going to buy this wonderful iPad, right? So you see that happening here, and a little bit of use of color in some of the text, but very simple layouts. So if Apple is creating very simple layouts, why shouldn't you, I guess, is my point here. Okay, so let's go over to InDesign, and actually let's look at our outline. So interface, let's talk about interface for a second. So I'm just going to close this file and talk about interface. So what I like to set my interface to is essentials. So in the top right for in InDesign, you'll see different options for working in publishing your books. So we're going to want to choose Essentials for that. And there's certain things that show up with Essentials, and they may or may not show up on depending on your version of InDesign. But what you can always do is you can always go to Window. And for example, one that's really important that I'm working with is this Ctrl, and that's what's showing up at the top of my screen here. So under Window, make sure that you're seeing Ctrl. Also under Window, you want to make sure that you're seeing Tools. So Tools is what's on the far left here. That is my tool. So if I get rid of that, those tools go away. So I want to see those. There are some other things under, let's see if they're under, just kind of going through here. Let me bring out my layers, for instance. Okay, so layers is going to be under Window. I know that. But let's see if I bring out my, say I bring out my paragraph. So that's going to be under Type. So there's a few of these under Type that we're going to look at today. So we'll look at paragraph, we'll look at character. So we'll go through these. So if you're not seeing the toolbars, you're going to want to look under Window, and you're going to want to look under Type, and I'll point these out as we go. Okay, so that's a little bit about the interface. Okay, so next, making a document and page sizes. Should I get fancy here and use like a strike through or something like that? I don't know if I can do that easy in this software. Alright, we'll next time be prepared, right? Next time I want to be prepared for that if we're going to do something like that. Okay. So we'll keep it low tech. Making a new document, page sizes. Alright, so if I go to File, New, I'm going to want to choose Document, not Book. Book is would be looking for a file for me to load in. So we're starting with File, New, and Document. Okay, so a couple things to look at. Number of pages. Alright, so I'm setting this to print, and or that was the default. So number of pages, I can just start with 1 and then facing pages. And when we add pages, we'll talk a little bit more about that. There's a start page number, which is, it could be start page number 1, or if you're doing if you're setting up a book that has a title page and you don't want that to have a number, a page number, you can change this, to start page number 0, let's say. Oh, sorry. We'll look at this a little bit later on with when we put in our page numbers. So that didn't work when I put in 0. Okay, so what about our page size? So we can do 8.5 by 11. We can do a tabloid. We'll work with tabloid today, which is 11 by 17, but we'll actually work with it landscape. I believe the name of 11 by 17 landscape is actually a ledger. I don't see ledger on here, but I think that's what we end up setting this up for. Okay, so I'm just going to hit OK here. And what you're going to see is you're going to see some margins in pink. Okay, so we have the margins in pink. Now I'm gonna change the size. So maybe you're not using 11 by 17. So File, New, Document. For a lot of my classes, the final presentation, I asked for that to be square, and I asked for that to be 36 by 36 inches. So that can easily be typed in there. Okay, and now you have a square 36 by 36. So whatever size sheet you're looking to make, you can type that in, whatever book size you're going to make. So it doesn't have to be 11 by 17 like we're working on today. It could be any size. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the 11 by 17. and this is landscape and portrait. Portrait's vertical, landscape is horizontal. Here are the margin settings. Right now they're at 1/2 inch all around, and I'm going to leave those at the 1/2 inch. Okay. Alright, I think I can get rid of this one. Okay, so let's go back and look at our outline. Alright, so layer setup. It's just, I'm so guilty of it. I'm so guilty of not setting up my layers strategically in InDesign. But I think it's important, and it makes sense down the road to set it up strategic. You won't have that many layers. You'll have a layer for your images. You'll have a layer for your text. And if you're doing any drawing inside InDesign, you'll have a layer for that. And as I'm saying drawing inside InDesign, what I don't want to forget to mention, InDesign is a vector-based software. It's not raster-based, so which is really good. Which means your text, you can, print this. You can increase your page size at any time you want, from 8.5 by 11 to 11 by 17 to 36 by 36. And since the text is vector, you won't lose any resolution. So if you're doing any drawing in Illustrator, or in InDesign, if you're doing any drawing in InDesign, like they have these, you can make, oops, let me zoom in a little bit there. I could make lines, and those lines could be, they could have arrowheads and things like that. Those are going to be vector. So I wouldn't recommend doing a whole lot of drawing. Doing some rectangles and arrows and things like that is fine. But if you want to do vector drawing in an Adobe product, you would use Illustrator. If you want to edit your photos, you would use Photoshop. Photoshop is for editing photos, and it's raster based, but InDesign is vector based. So I just want to point that out. Okay, so back to layers. So now layers, this is the icon for layers over on the right. If you don't see this icon with the sheets, you would just go to Window and you would go to Layers, and it's going to pop out the layers for you. Okay, let's take layer 1 and let's make this, I'm going to make this images. So layer 1 is what I'm going to place my images on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to bring out some guides to place our images on. Okay, so guides are really helpful. What you do is you have the rulers. So let's see what the shortcut is. Yeah, the shortcut is on a Windows computer, it's Ctrl R for the rulers. Ctrl R, and on a Mac, I'm guessing it would be Command R. And I don't know where it is otherwise. Here it is, Control R, yeah. So it is under View, where you could hide rulers or show rulers if for some reason Control or Command R isn't working for you. Okay, so you want to see the rulers, and then from the rulers you can pull out guides. So let's say I place this guide at 6 inches, and you can get it right at 6 inches. It doesn't, it doesn't have to be exactly at 6, but somewhere close. And then if I pull one from the top, I can put that, let's say, at 2 inches. Let's see if I can get that. Yeah, so at 2 inches. So I've made some guides that I can place my images or align my images to. Or right now, I'm basically splitting my canvas. Canvas would be my sheet of paper. I'm splitting that into 2, where I have a left column and a right column. I'm actually splitting into 4, where I have some headers at the top and some body down below. So guides can be helpful for that. So you're going to want to use your guides for alignment. The worst thing you can do with InDesign is just have images floating all over the places, or all over the place, or text floating all over the place. You want to anchor it to something, and you want some sort of alignment when you're working with InDesign. Alright, so let's place an image. So now under File, Place, I'm using Control D, or on a Mac, Command D. Okay, so that's the most used shortcut for me. Control D, and I'm going to bring in an image. Let's see here. I don't know why it's not showing me the placement, or I'm not sure why it's not showing me the thumbnail for some of these. Okay, so I'm going to bring in this image. Okay, so let's talk about this by itself, like what we can do with this image. Okay, so what we can do is we can start off by scaling it. If I want to scale it, I could scale it right away. I could type in 90% and I can scale it. And I'm making sure that my constrained proportions for scaling is locked on. So if I want that smaller, I can do it like this. So that's one way that I can scale it. Let's look at other ways that we can scale it. So if I double click on it, it turns brown. The frame turns brown, and I can do some scaling. Okay, so depending on what version you're in of InDesign, I'm not sure if they've changed it. Like I'm doing this without the Shift key, and it's scaling unproportionally. On my version of InDesign, I need to hold the Shift key down to scale proportionally. So let me go back here. Bunch of scales. All right, so I can scale that down holding the Shift key. Okay, I can position it within that blue frame. Okay, so now you see that we have the brown frame, which is the extents of the image, and then we have the blue frame, which is just really nothing. What it becomes is the blue frame becomes a crop window. So what I like about that is if I click on the blue frame now, I can crop this. Okay, which is, you're going to want to be able to crop images. So I'm going to crop it just to the very outside of the image itself. And one way that I can do this, you see me doing it manually. Another way I can do this is I can right click and I can go to fitting and I can go to fit frame to content. Let's see if this works. So fit frame to content. Okay, so this content is cropped top and bottom, but not left and right. So I still have to go in here and do this. Okay, and now I'm going to take it and I'm going to snap it to my guides. Okay, so perfect. So now I have my image in there. Alright, so Control D was our shortcut of the day. Scale, crop. Okay, display performance. This is an important one. So let's go down here and let's take a look at this. I'm going to zoom way in. Okay, so you see it's blurry. Now that's okay. That doesn't mean that it's going to print blurry. Okay, it's still going to print sharp, but what InDesign is doing is it's saving some memory. It's saving some computer resources. If you make a book that's 200 pages and it's full of images, you're going to want to make the display lower quality so that the computer doesn't crash on you, that it can handle it. So let's look at something. Let's right click and let's go down to display performance and let's choose high quality display. So there I can see the high quality of the image. So that's just up to you. If you don't have that many pages and you want to see the high quality, you can do that by right clicking and going to display performance and choosing high quality or typical display. Now you can also, once you've placed your image and you know it's exactly where you want, and if you want the computer to move really fast, you could right click and go down to display performance and you could choose fast display, which is just a grayed out image. Okay, so let's go to display performance. Let's just use typical display. Okay, one other thing that I didn't have on my outline was the links. Okay, so there's links here. or you could also get it through window links. Okay, so just so you know, InDesign, it references the JPEG. It's linked to it. So if that JPEG changes, it changes here in InDesign. So you have to have your JPEGs with you. Okay, they're linked to the file. They're not embedded. They don't get embedded in the InDesign file. They're referenced or linked. Okay, that's something important to point out. All right, let's get into some text. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a text layer. So I'm going to come here, click on the little create new layer, change its name, call this text. Okay, so the text tool is over here, and this is from my window, from my tools toolbar. Okay, so I want to make sure my tools toolbar is out. And then there's the T with the text, the type tool. And what you do is you click, I can click and I can drag. Okay, so now I have this little area that if I was to type in, I'm going to type that in caps title. I can select that and I can change the font. So I'm using Arial. Helvetica used to be the font, you know, of the 70s, 80s, 90s. maybe my history's off a little bit there, but Helvetica used to be the font. And if you want to see a good documentary on Netflix, there's a documentary about a font called Helvetica. The closest font to that these days is Arial, and there are some other good fonts out there. Now, what I would encourage you all to use is stay away from serif fonts. Serif fonts are things that have a lot of curvature in them. So there's, for example, these here. There's you guys might not all have these, but there are these fonts here that even, let's see what Minion Pro, I don't know if that's the default for everybody, but this is considered a serif font because it has this curvature on the ends of the E and the L and the tops of the T. So now when we change that to Arial, that's sans serif. So those go away. Those curvatures go away. Another one that I like is the Swiss font. Maybe not necessarily that black one, but there's other types of the. If I type in S here, probably bring me down to the Swiss. So there's a lot of different Swiss fonts here that you could use, and they're sans serif. See if I can just find a regular one. So there's just a regular, it's a little wider than an Arial. Okay, but just for simplicity today, I'm going to keep these at Arial. Okay, so sans serif. Stick with your sans serif fonts. Don't try to be too fancy with the script. You saw Apple. Apple had sans serif fonts, so all right. Let's look at the text size here. So this is my title. So how big do I want to make it? I'm gonna go for 36 points. All right. So since this is vector based, this point size doesn't matter if you're working 11 by 17, if you're working 36 by 36, 40 by 60 inches. So it doesn't matter what size your sheet is. The point size will always be scaled throughout the sheet sizes. So if you say, okay, I want my titles to always be 36 points, that's fine. That'll work for any sheet size. Or if I want my body text to be 12 points, that again will work for any sheet size. So I'm going to make this 36. Okay, so now this is the type. It's Arial is the name of the font. The type is regular. So you have regular, you have italic. Let's highlight this. We have regular, we have italic, we have bold, and we have bold italic. Okay. For my titles, depending on how I'm trying to make them stand out, I won't use regular for my titles. Sometimes I'll use italic, sometimes I'll use bold, sometimes I'll use bold italic. Okay, so that's my title, and right now it's 36. So let's see the relationship between. Oops. Let's see the relationship between the page. I'm just control plussing and control minusing to zoom in and out. So I'm looking at the relationship between the page and this font size, and also the image and the font size. And this font size is not too large. It's a pretty good font size. Okay. Something also to keep in mind when I click on this is showing me the color of my layer, which is red, and this color of the image layer is blue. Alright, so let's add some body text here. Okay, now I don't always have to make a new type tool rectangle. I don't have to drag out a new one each time. Let's see, what layer am I on? I'm on images. Okay, so I want to be on my text layer. Okay, I think when I clicked on the image, it just defaulted to that layer. So I want to be on my text layer. Okay, now I'm not going to make a new text box. I'm gonna click in here and hit the return key, and I'm gonna start to type in body text is small and regular. Right now it's not. My text went off the page, so let's go ahead and select all of this. It doesn't let me select what's off the frame, I should call it. So out of the text box frame. So you'll see it come in. So when I select this, let's say I want to make this 12. Okay, so I'm going to make this all 12. Okay, and I'm also going to make this just regular. I'll make it all regular. Okay. So now, one thing that I can do as as an effect, or to make this look a little bit nicer, is I can take this title text and I can make this title, the word title, I can make that the same width as the sentence body text is small and regular. Okay, so I can select this and I can do something called tracking, and that I'm going to do under character. So if you don't have character, you can go to window or it's actually under type, right? So under type we can pull out character. Okay, so what I don't use is I don't use the scaling. I don't scale the font width. Like, I don't do this. I don't stretch it. Okay, I want to stay away from stretching it. What I want to do is I want to add space in between each of the letters. And to add space in between each of the letters, that's something called tracking. So if I type in values here, let's start with 100. You see I get space between each of the letters. So I just keep going until, let's try 300. Let's try 400. Okay, 400 looks pretty good. Okay, something around 400. Okay, so it says title, and it's the same width as the text below it. Body text is small and regular. So that's something pretty cool that you can do. Alright, so let's look at our outline. Okay, so we've looked at text title and body and text type, and we've looked at tracking. We haven't looked at justification, and we haven't looked at paragraphs, especially with no hyphens. Okay, so let's look at that now. Alright, so if I make a new text box, now I'm going to make it the same width as this one above. I'm going to, whether or not I want my paragraph to go all the way out here, or if I want to make it to fit to that one, I'm not sure. Let's see here. If I click this one and I right click and I go down to fitting and I choose fit frame to content, it's not fitting my width for some reason. Alright, that's something that works sometimes and others it doesn't. So I can do something manually and I can zoom way in and look at it, or I can do something like that. Okay, so then with this one, it's gonna snap to that. It's gonna find that snap point. So if I want my paragraph to be in there, it can snap to it. Okay, so let's look at making a paragraph in here. So I'm going to remake this text box because it's putting the text at the very bottom. Okay, because I took it and I went this way instead. So it should work now. Okay, so we're gonna make a paragraph out of this, and I want this to be Arial. Okay, so paragraph. I'm making a paragraph using the text tool. This is a fantastic tool. Fantastic tool. So it's showing me when I misspell, and what I'm trying to do, actually, what I'm trying to do is get InDesign to give me a hyphen, which it didn't in the way I was typing. But when you don't want it to give you a hyphen, it will, and when you do, it won't. So let's look at this. So what you want to do is under paragraph. Okay, so if you don't see paragraph on your right hand side, you can go to type and make sure paragraph is checked on. And what's set up by default for a paragraph is it's set up to hyphenate. So it will put a hyphen between a long word that goes from one line to another. So you want to make sure that you uncheck hyphenate from paragraph. Okay, the other things that we can do is we can look at alignment of the text. So here you see center, which I say never use, and then the last line will get aligned to the right, and then this just centers all the text. The one that I prefer is centering all the text, and then the last line just left aligning it and letting it run off versus trying to center every line and then getting these widespread voids of nothingness. So I'm going to click on my left. There's also align left, center, again, which please don't use center, and then align right. So let's go with this one. Justify with last line aligned left. That's the one that I like. Justify with last line aligned left. Alright, fantastic. Let's look at switching layers. So let's say that my layer images becomes current, and then I go and I make a text. And you can see that it's on the wrong layer because it's blue versus red. So this one I'm labeling polyhedra or I'll say polyhedra tessellation. Need two L's there. I believe I spelled polyhedra right. It's just giving me an error. Polyhedra tessellation plan. Okay, so I'm going to change the font of this. This is going to become Arial. And I'm going to right justify this. I can also do this from up here. Align right. Okay, fantastic. Now to switch the layer, I can select it and I can go to my layers and I can just click on the dot for text. And that should, let's see, it didn't work, but we should be able to get that to work. Oh, I think I gotta drag it like this. Yeah, so it's important that you drag it. See how it's going from blue, and I drag and drop it, blue to red. Okay, so that's something you want to know how to do, so that's helpful. Alright, let me just save this. Important that you save. Okay, so we've looked at all this justification, paragraphs with no hyphens. We looked at switching layers. Okay, a couple more things to do. Alright, so duplicate spread and facing pages. Alright, so let's say for now I'm done with this page. This is what I want this page to look like. Now I want to move on to my next page. So you have some options here. So if we go to Window and we go to Pages, or it's this icon here with the pages split in half. What I can do is I can just, if I want a new blank page, I can create a new page by clicking on this icon. Also, I can do it this way, insert pages. I did that just by right clicking. So either way, I can click on the little new object and it just gives me a new page. And it's a blank page. So that's one way to do it. Now another way to do this is, what I can do is I can click on this and I can right click and I can choose duplicate spread. Okay, or essentially it's duplicating a page. So I can click on duplicate spread and that page 2 is the same as page 1. Okay, it's just over here now. Alright, because it's using facing pages, and we'll continue with that in a moment. Alright, so let's say I want to change this image. Let's say I want to put a different image here. I can select this image and then I can use Ctrl D or Command D, and then I can select another image that goes in there. I don't know why my computer is having trouble showing me the previews. That's just one of those days. Okay, so if I click on, let's say I click on this one. Alright, so it puts it in there at the same scale, like the way I scale the other one, and it crops it. So if I double click on it, you'll see it has the brown outline here. Okay. Alright, so let me duplicate the spread one more time. So if I right click and I choose duplicate spread, and let's change this image so we know it's a different image. Okay. So you see that these are all these different pages. I can double click and it changes to these pages. Alright, so these are facing pages. So it's like making a book where this would be the title page and then this would be the individual pages inside. So that's the way InDesign is set up. It's what it's good at. It's good at making portfolios. And in this case, a portfolio with a cover page. If I don't want that, if I just want these all stacked, what I can do is I can go into File, or maybe it's under, yeah, it's probably under File, Document Setup. So I can go into File, Document Setup, and I can uncheck facing pages, and now it's just going to stack those. Okay, so it's up to you. It's your preference on whether or not you want them facing or stacked like they are. So here they're just stacked. Okay, what's left? Okay, we did duplicate spread, we did facing pages. Okay, page numbers is all that's left. So let's look at that. So to make a page number, you want to start with by creating a text box. Okay, so let's create a text box. Just gonna make it big for now. Okay, so, and I'm just gonna type in, or what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to type. So I made a text box, is the first thing. Second thing I'm gonna do is go to type, and I'm gonna go down to insert special character, and I'm gonna go down to markers. Okay, so I could use current page number, which will be 1. I could use next page number, or I could use previous page number. Okay, so keep that in mind, because maybe your title page, maybe you don't want a page number on your title sheet, right? Typically that you don't see that. So you wouldn't put one on the title sheet. You would go to the next page number, and then you would add previous page number for your page number. So let's look at this. We'll look at it both ways. All right, so current page number, it puts a 1 there. And I want that, right now it's 12 is the point size, and we can make that Arial. Okay. And I can make this smaller. What I can do is I can right click and go down to fitting, and I can fit frame to content. And then I can move this into the lower right. Okay. So now to get that onto the other pages, I would just select it, and I would use edit, copy, and then I would go to my next page, and I'd go to edit, paste in place. And okay, so that should say 2. So it automatically says 2, and I'm just using Control 0 or Command 0 to zoom out. So if I go to the next page, I can do the same thing. I can go to edit, paste in place. Okay, and that says 3. Okay, let's try it the other way. Now, if it doesn't work, there's nothing I can do about it but make a video where something doesn't work, which I've done before. So let's see now. If I go in here, and so if this was a title page, let's say that this was, let's go to make this layout, or not layout, but let's go to File, and let's go to Document Setup, and let's make this facing pages. Okay, so this title page wouldn't have a page number. So here I would start with my pages, facing pages in a book. So this would be 1 and 2. So let's go in here, and let's get rid of that, and let's go to type, insert special character, markers. So I want this to be previous page number. Alright, so see, that didn't work. I'm going to try it one more time. Insert special character, markers, insert previous page number, which would be, previous page number would be 1. Let's see if see what happens when I do this over here. Insert special character, markers, previous page number. See, it's still giving me the 3. Alright, so that didn't work. So someone out there knows how to do it, and someone's gonna put it in the comments for us and let us know how to do it, because that's something important. So sorry I couldn't make that happen for us today, but someone's going to figure it out, and someone's going to put it in the comments, and it will be there for eternity for everyone to see. Alright, what else? Is that it? That's it. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please, if you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. If you give me a thumbs up, tell me why you enjoyed it in the comments. My face is going to pop up in the upper left. You can click on that to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And then in the upper right, I'm going to put a link to some videos. I don't know what yet in the upper right and in the lower right. Alright, everyone have a fantastic day, and I will see you on the next one.